Back during the budget proposal, the original budget proposal, the finance department had said that they could do without a particular position for 1 year. They'd sweat it out because at the end of the year we were going to change from a 4-payment plan to a 2-payment plan, in which case they knew they wouldn't need that position. But they were going to try the first year without the position anyway.
That's right.
Well, when the 2-payment plan was rejected, and we went to we were just going to have a 4-payment plan at the end of the year, suddenly Finance Director David Brown decides, well, there's no way we can possibly do without that position now for this next year, so we want it back in there. And you objected to that.
That's
and
correct.
I thought your proposition was that, well, we said we were going to be able to do without it. Let's do without it and check it at the end of the year and see if we really need it or not.
Right.
And I thought it was a good argument, but you didn't get any support on that. And I'd like to understand both things. How could you get no support on what seemed to me a perfectly reasonable proposition that the taxpayers, I'm sure, would have liked?
Well, let's start out by saying that there's 15 aldermen. They each have their own views, and none of us has any particular corner on the truth. So I can only assume that my fellow aldermen thought this through and had their own reasons for voting the way they did. I would have to tell you I do not understand it, which was why I took the position I did. Simply put, the city attempted to change the property tax payment system from the 4-payment system that it's been to a 2-payment system. They made a number of arguments about how this would be more compatible with the county and a whole variety of other things. And in fact, in a meeting that I held with the county treasurer, we found that many of these arguments didn't seem to be nearly as solid as had been purported. I raised those concerns at the council meeting. I fought as hard as I could to oppose the change to the 2-payment system, and I'm very happy to say that enough other aldermen agreed with that position, either for reasons that I had raised or for reasons that they had come up with on their own, to defeat this. And so the city was not able to move forward with its proposal. And if you think about it, I mean, we're at a time where 22.7% of the people who live in the city of Racine are under the federal poverty line. And that's the government's count. So we can pretty much assume the numbers are really higher. We have the highest unemployment in the state. We have one of the highest foreclosure rates in the state. So we should be trying to make home ownership easier, not harder. And approximately 40% of property taxpayers in the city, in fact, take advantage of those 4 payments. And to tell those people, hey, guess what? In January, instead of having to make your 1 payment, okay, we're going to make you make a double payment.
Yeah.
Okay, that would have been a real hardship on a lot of people. Now, it was not scheduled to take place, though, until January of 2013. But as you pointed out, Director Brown said, we'll eliminate the position now, okay, and we'll struggle through in 2012 with just what we have, and we'll be able to handle the 4-payment system. It'll just be tough for us. Well, my argument is, you know what? It's tough all around, okay? It's tough at my business. It's tough at many businesses that the people who are watching this program work at. It's tough to put food on the table. It's tough to make the mortgage and the rent payments. I don't think it's unfair to turn to the Director of Finance and say, David, you said you could struggle through 1 year. Let's see what happens, okay? And you had already committed yourself to doing it, okay? So let's follow through on that. Let's do that, and then at the end of the year, during this next budget cycle, we'll decide, did it work or not? But remember, you had already agreed to do it, okay? So let's follow through on that. Let's try it out and see, what is the actual cost? What does get done? What doesn't get done? And then we can make a policy decision at next year's budget cycle about whether we need to restore that position or not. What we in fact did is just gave in. okay? And we just said, well, hey, even though you said you could get by, and even though people are struggling all across this city, we'll let you restore this position. I just don't think that was the right thing to do. I think this was an excellent opportunity to experiment with a reduction in a position, which, by the way, is vacant. So this does not involve laying off anybody. This was already a vacant position. So we're actually going to go out and have to hire somebody for it. I just don't think that was the appropriate way to spend taxpayer dollars.
How much does it cost the taxpayers to make that move to go hire somebody? Do we have any idea? Is that a full-time position, or is it going to, with including benefits, it's going to cost us what, $50,000-$60,000 anyway?
Yeah,
then, right?
I don't know what the total cost is going to be. I venture that will depend on who gets hired, what their experience level is, things of that sort.
And I find it utterly amazing, and I've watched it too much, that the aldermen do not want to see anybody in the bureaucracy struggling. Really having to work hard and really have to figure out how to make things work like we do in the private sector.
Well, I think we have.
It's like we're babying them, and for what reason?
Well, I think that when we look at the individual people working in City Hall, and I mean that generically, so whether they're out at Pearl Street or wherever they happen to be, the people in this city work hard. They work very hard. The concern I have is, when we look at something like this, where we have actually found a way to eliminate a position, and we think we can make it through at least 1 year, okay? Why not try it? Why not do exactly what Director Brown had proposed that we do for 2012, when he thought that the prize at the end was going to be to change from 4 to 2 payments? Nothing changed for 2012. The same workload would be there. The same responsibilities would have been there, and I think we should have taken advantage of the opportunity to see if, in fact, we could have reduced a position.
I would just warn you, I agree with you, I appreciate what you're saying about everybody there works hard, but I have just recently talked to some people, had some more reports of watching the workers on the street where there's two people supervising and one person working. So that's still going on, and I really strongly suspect that when you get into the hierarchy of the bureaucracy, it's going on even stronger. I think there's a lot of very highly paid people, back to that $100,000 class, that their whole job is to justify their position. That's what they're constantly working on, as opposed to actually being productive, like we consider a person productive in the private sector.
Yeah, George, the comment that I would make.
Sorry about my cynicism, but the reports are still there, Alderman, that they see this, and I've seen it.
And I understand the reports. The problem is, without getting into what people are actually doing, okay, without understanding the specific job tasks, we really don't know who's doing what out on a work crew.
And you can, and that gets into micromanagement, but you brought that up when you first came on the council. At the first budget hearing, you brought up the thing that the way you handle these bureaucracies, and I remember you were talking about somebody's computer, Pete's computer or something
Fred's
like that. Fred's computer. And you said the way you handle it is you do exactly what you attempted to do here. You say, we're going to cut your budget by 10%, you figure out how to cut it, you come back with the answers, or if I have to go down and do it, you may not like the way I cut it. And that's the response you do. The aldermen simply have to say, no, you said you could do without it, we're going to do without it, you make it happen. In the private sector, when they decide to downsize, it's not all figured out. They said, we got to cut out 20% of our costs, 20% are getting laid off, but we're not cutting productivity, we're not cutting our production, we are increasing our productivity, and we'll figure out how we do it once we get into it. That's what the private sector has to do. Yeah. Why can't we demand it of the government too?
I think we should be demanding that of the government. And in the previous year's budget cycle, I argued strongly that the administration should have come in with a balanced budget, and they didn't.
Right.
Now they're required to do so by law, and amazingly enough, they were able to do it.
And that's just fantastic. Well, listen, I really appreciate your efforts on this. But we'll get on to the next issue, which is going to be the stop sign at the Colvin and Meade Streets.